Okay, so you sent us a bunch of stuff about vaccines,
Yeah.
a video, some articles.
hmm
It seems like you're ready to, like, really get into it, huh?
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
really go beyond just the surface level.
hmm
So we're going to try to unpack how these things actually work,
Okay.
different types of vaccines,
Right.
and how they interact with, like, your body's own defense system,
Right.
the immune system.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic
Oh, yeah.
and really more relevant now than ever, I think.
Totally, right?
Ew.
It seems like everyone and their mother has an opinion on vaccines these days.
Yeah,
But, like, understanding the science can really help, you know, cut through the noise.
definitely.
So before we even get to vaccines themselves,
Yeah.
we need to lay down some groundwork.
Okay.
Talk to me about the human immune system.
So the human immune system,
Yeah,
well, it's an incredibly complex system,
I bet.
but we can break it down into two main parts.
Okay.
The innate immune system
Okay.
and the adaptive immune system.
Got it. Innate versus adaptive.
So break that down for me.
Okay, so imagine your innate immune system, like the security guards at a big event, right?
Okay.
They're the first line of defense.
Mm-hmm.
They're checking IDs and ready to tackle anyone who seems suspicious,
Right.
no matter who they are.
Yeah.
That's your innate system.
Okay.
It's quick to react and broadly targets anything foreign that enters your body.
Got it. So it's not picky?
No, not at all.
Okay. What about the adaptive system then?
So the adaptive system is more like the detectives who arrive on the scene after the initial security response.
Okay.
So they carefully investigate, gather evidence, and develop a plan specifically targeted to the culprit.
Okay.
So the adaptive system is slower to act, but far more precise,
Okay.
developing a memory of specific threats and building up immunity against them.
So the innate system is like the first responders.
Right.
And the adaptive system is the specialized unit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
There's this theory that our adaptive immunity cells might actually be organized like a blockchain.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. So think about it. A blockchain is essentially a distributed and secure record of information.
Hmm.
If our immune cells use a similar system, it would mean incredibly long-lasting memory,
Right.
ensuring that we remain immune to certain threats for decades, maybe even a lifetime.
Wow. Our bodies are way cooler than we give them credit for.
Yeah,
So vaccines essentially take advantage of this incredible system, right?
exactly.
You're training it to fight specific enemies.
Yeah, and to understand how they do that, it helps to look back at how vaccines were first discovered.
Okay.
So let's take a trip back to 1796.
Ooh, a history lesson.
Yeah.
I love a good origin story.
To the story of Edward Jenner and the smallpox vaccine.
Okay, set the scene for me.
Okay, so back then, smallpox was a terrifying disease, killing millions of people.
Yeah.
Jenner was an English physician,
Okay.
and he observed that milkmaids who contracted cowpox, a milder disease,
Okay.
seemed to be immune to smallpox.
So he made a connection between these two different diseases.
Right.
That's pretty insightful for the time.
It was revolutionary.
Yeah.
So Jenner tested his theory by exposing a young boy to cowpox,
Oh, wow.
and then later to smallpox.
Okay.
And the boy remained healthy,
Wow.
and the world got its first vaccine.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that eventually led to the eradication of smallpox, right?
It did.
That's a huge victory for humanity.
It is a huge victory, but as our source material points out, eradicating the virus we're discussing today is a whole different ballgame.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, smallpox had a key weakness.
Okay.
It could only infect humans.
Right.
But the virus we're talking about today can infect various animals,
Uh-huh.
creating these reservoirs where it can hide and mutate.
Oh, wow.
So eradicating is going to be much, much harder.
So it's like playing whack-a-mole, but the moles have underground tunnels connecting all the holes.
Exactly.
So no matter how many you whack, more keep popping up.
Yeah, perfect analogy. And it really underscores why vaccines are so critical
Right.
in our fight against this particular virus.
Okay, so let's talk about the different types of vaccines.
Sure.
Our video source mentions a whole bunch.
It does.
But before we get into the specifics,
Yeah.
can you give us a general overview? Like,
Yeah.
what are the main categories?
So there are a few key approaches.
Okay.
Inactivated vaccines,
Okay.
live attenuated vaccines,
Okay.
viral vector vaccines, and recombinant protein vaccines.
Wow. So many.
And each approach has its own strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
And researchers are constantly working to develop new and improved vaccines.
So it sounds like a toolkit with different options for different jobs.
It is.
So let's start with the classic approach, inactivated vaccines.
Okay.
What's the deal with those?
So these vaccines contain killed versions of the virus.
Okay.
It's like showing your immune system a wanted poster of the enemy. The virus can't replicate or make you sick, but your body can still learn to recognize it and fight it off in the future.
Got it. So it's a safer option,
Yeah.
but maybe not as powerful as facing the real deal.
That's right. Inactivated vaccines are generally very safe,
Okay.
but they might require multiple doses or boosters to achieve a strong and lasting immunity.
Okay.
Think of the annual flu shot, for example.
Yeah.
It's an inactivated vaccine.
Okay, that makes sense. What about live attenuated vaccines?
Okay, so
Those sound a bit more intense.
they are. Live attenuated vaccines contain a weakened version of the virus.
Okay.
Think of it like sending in a spy who's been flipped to our side.
Huh?
They're still part of the enemy team, but they're working for us now.
So they can still replicate, but in a way that doesn't cause serious illness.
Exactly.
Okay.
This means that they can trigger a strong and long-lasting immune response,
Okay.
often with just a single dose.
Gotcha.
But because they contain a live virus, there's a slight risk,
Yeah.
especially for people with weakened immune systems.
So it's a trade-off. Potentially stronger immunity, but with a slightly higher risk.
Right.
What are some examples of live attenuated vaccines?
The MMR vaccine for measles, mumps, and rubella is a good example.
Okay.
It's been incredibly successful in preventing these diseases, but there's always that tiny risk to consider.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about these viral vector vaccines?
Okay, so
Those sound pretty high-tech.
they are. Viral vector vaccines are like Trojan horses.
Okay.
They use a harmless virus as a delivery system to smuggle in genetic material from the target virus.
So it's like sending a secret message inside a decoy package.
Exactly. The harmless virus can't replicate or cause disease,
Okay.
but it delivers the instructions for making specific proteins from the target virus.
Mm-hmm.
This triggers an immune response, preparing your body to fight the real deal.
Clever. And what about recombinant protein vaccines? Those sound complicated.
They can be, but the basic idea is this.
Okay.
Instead of using the entire virus, scientists identify and produce specific proteins from the virus that are known to trigger an immune response.
So it's like showing your immune system just the enemy's uniform, not the entire army.
That's a great way to put it.
Uh-huh.
By focusing on specific proteins, recombinant protein vaccines can be very precise and effective.
Okay. I think I'm getting the hang of these different approaches.
Yeah.
But we still haven't talked about the newest kid on the block, mRNA vaccines.
Right.
These seem to be causing a lot of buzz lately.
Yeah, they are. mRNA vaccines are a revolutionary new approach
Uh-huh.
that has the potential to change the way we prevent and treat diseases.
Wow.
But before we dive into that,
Yeah.
I think it's important to address something you mentioned earlier,
Okay.
the concerns people have about vaccines in general.
Yeah, you're right. That's a crucial part of this conversation.
Yeah,
There's a lot of misinformation out there,
there is.
and it's understandable that people have questions.
Absolutely. So why don't we take a moment to debunk some common myths
Okay.
and address those concerns head on.
Sounds good to me. What's first on the list?
Okay, so, well, one of the most persistent myths is that vaccines cause autism.
Oh, yeah.
And this has been debunked time and time again,
Yeah.
but it still circulates online
I know
and causes a lot of unnecessary fear.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that one pop up.
Yeah,
And it's pretty scary for parents, especially those who are already hesitant about vaccines.
absolutely. This myth stems from a deeply flawed and ultimately retracted research paper
Well,
published back in 1998.
okay.
But since then, numerous large-scale studies have conclusively shown that there's no link between vaccines and autism.
So it's like a bad rumor that just won't die,
Right.
even though the facts are clear.
Exactly.
Okay. What about the concern that vaccines are rushed through development and not properly tested for safety?
Right.
That seems to be a common worry, especially with newer vaccines like the mRNA ones.
It's a valid concern, especially when we see how quickly some vaccines, like the COVID-19 vaccines, were developed.
Right.
But it's important to understand that vaccine development is a rigorous process.
Right.
With multiple phases of testing and safety evaluations, it doesn't happen overnight.
Okay, so there are checks and balances in place.
Yeah.
But I think what people get hung up on is the timeline.
Right.
The COVID-19 vaccines seem to appear very quickly, which might make some people think that corners were cut.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
But the rapid development of the COVID-19 vaccines was due to several factors,
Okay.
including unprecedented global collaboration, significant funding,
Okay.
and the urgency of the pandemic. It's
Yeah.
like all hands were on deck. and resources were mobilized at an incredible pace.
So it was a perfect storm of circumstances that allowed for faster development but without compromising safety protocols.
Exactly. And that's a crucial point. The scientific community didn't just throw out the rule book.
Okay.
They found ways to streamline the process without sacrificing rigor.
Gotcha.
For example, some bureaucratic hurdles were cleared more quickly, and researchers worked together in unprecedented ways, sharing data and resources.
It sounds like the pandemic, as devastating as it was, also spurred some positive changes in how we approach scientific research and development.
It did. It showed us what's possible when we work together with a shared goal.
That's actually pretty inspiring. Okay, so we've addressed some of the common concerns and myths.
We have.
But what about people who are still hesitant?
Right.
What would you say to them?
I would encourage them to approach this with an open mind.
Okay.
And seek information from reliable sources.
Okay.
Don't rely solely on social media or anecdotes.
Yeah.
Talk to your healthcare provider, someone who understands your medical history and can address your specific concerns.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about having a conversation with someone you trust.
Right.
Someone who has the knowledge and expertise to guide you.
Precisely. And remember, it's okay to have questions.
Yeah.
It shows that you're thinking critically and engaging with the information.
I think that's a really important point. Blind trust isn't the goal here.
Yeah.
Informed decision-making is.
Exactly. We want people to feel empowered to make choices that are right for them, based on evidence and a clear understanding of the risks and benefits.
Speaking of risks and benefits, one thing we haven't talked about yet is herd immunity.
Right.
Our source material touches on this concept, but it seems pretty crucial to understanding the bigger picture of vaccination.
It is. Herd immunity is the idea that when a large enough percentage of a population is immune to a disease, it creates a protective barrier, making it harder for the disease to spread and protecting even those who aren't immune.
So it's like a shield that protects the entire community, not just those who are vaccinated.
Exactly. Think of it like this. If you're surrounded by people who are immune to a virus, it's much less likely that you'll get infected, even if you're not vaccinated yourself.
Yeah.
It's like a safety net for those who are vulnerable or can't be vaccinated for medical reasons.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like creating a firewall of protection around those who are most susceptible. But our source material makes a point about the virus we're discussing.
Yeah.
It's not like smallpox, where we could achieve herd immunity and completely eradicate the disease.
That's right. The virus we're talking about today, because it can infect animals, is unlikely to be eradicated entirely.
Okay.
Even if we achieved high levels of vaccination in humans, there's always a chance that it could circulate in animal populations and spill back over to humans.
So it's more about managing the risk than completely eliminating it.
Precisely. And that's why ongoing vaccination efforts are so important.
Right.
We need to maintain those high levels of immunity to keep the virus in check and prevent widespread outbreaks.
It sounds like a constant battle.
Yeah.
Like we need to keep our defenses up even after achieving a certain level of herd immunity.
That's a good way to put it. It's like maintaining a healthy immune system.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process, not a one-time event.
Okay, so we've talked about herd immunity.
We have.
The importance of accurate information and the rigorous process of vaccine development.
Right.
What else do we need to cover in this deep dive?
Okay.
So I feel like we've gone through a lot already.
We have, but there are a couple more things I'd like to touch on.
Okay.
First, I think it's important to acknowledge that the conversation around vaccines often goes beyond just the science.
Oh, okay.
There are ethical considerations, too.
Right. This isn't just about facts and figures.
No.
It's about people, values, and individual choices.
Exactly. And one of the most important ethical principles in medicine is informed consent.
Okay.
This means that individuals have the right to make decisions about their own health based on accurate and understandable information.
So it's about empowering people to make informed choices, not just telling them what to do.
Precisely. And that involves open and honest communication, addressing concerns, and respecting individual autonomy.
That sounds straightforward. But I imagine it can get tricky in situations where personal choices might impact public health.
Right.
Like with vaccine mandates, for example.
Yeah, that's
a whole other can of worms, isn't it?
It is. It's a topic that sparks a lot of debate.
Yeah.
On the one hand, we have the rights of individuals to make their own healthcare decisions. On the other hand, we have the responsibility of society to protect public health.
But it's like balancing individual freedom with the common good.
Exactly.
Not an easy task.
It's definitely a complex issue with no easy answers. Our source material doesn't provide a definitive solution.
Okay.
but it does emphasize the importance of open dialogue and respectful debate.
That seems like a reasonable approach, especially with a topic as sensitive and nuanced as this one.
I agree. We need to be able to have these conversations without resorting to personal attacks or dismissing legitimate concerns.
Yeah.
Everyone deserves to be heard and respected, even if we don't agree on everything.
That sounds like a good starting point.
Yeah.
So we've talked about herd immunity.
We have.
Informed consent.
Mm-hmm.
The ethical considerations.
Right.
What else is there?
Well, before we get too deep into the ethical and philosophical side of things, I think it's important to remember just how much vaccines have achieved.
Okay.
We often take for granted the fact that we no longer have to worry about diseases that were once major killers.
Right, like smallpox, which we mentioned earlier.
Exactly.
And polio.
Right.
I remember my parents talking about how scary that was when they were kids.
Polio used to paralyze thousands of children every year.
Wow.
Thanks to widespread vaccination, it's now virtually eradicated in most parts of the world.
It's like we're living in a different world now, a world where those diseases are just a distant memory.
Right.
But it's easy to forget that those victories were hard-won.
They were,
Yeah.
and they represent countless hours of research, dedication, and sacrifice from scientists, healthcare workers, and public health advocates.
Yeah.
We're standing on the shoulders of giants.
That's a powerful image. And it's a reminder that we have a responsibility to continue that legacy.
We do.
To advocate for vaccines.
Right.
To fight misinformation.
Yeah.
And to ensure that everyone has access to these life-saving interventions.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's about recognizing that vaccines are not just a personal choice, but a collective effort, a way to build a healthier and safer future for all.
I like that. It's about shared responsibility, about working together to protect ourselves and future generations.
Exactly. And that brings us to another crucial point.
Okay.
The future of vaccines.
Ooh, yes. I'm always fascinated by the cutting edge of science. What's on the horizon?
Well, one area that's generating a lot of excitement is the development of personalized vaccines.
Personalized vaccine.
Okay.
So it's like getting a custom-made suit, but for your immune system.
Exactly. Imagine a world where vaccines are designed to be most effective for your specific body, minimizing side effects and maximizing protection.
That sounds incredible, but how is that even possible?
So advances in genomics and immunology are allowing scientists to understand the subtle differences in how our bodies respond to vaccines.
Okay.
This opens up the possibility of tailoring vaccine formulations to individual needs.
So it's like having a vaccine that's fine-tuned to hit the bullseye every time, rather than a one-size-fits-all approach.
Precisely. And this could be a game changer for people with compromised immune systems or those who don't respond well to traditional vaccines.
That's amazing. It's like we're moving from a mass production model of vaccines to a more personalized approach.
Right.
Similar to how medicine is evolving in other areas.
Exactly. And this personalized approach could potentially revolutionize the way we prevent and treat diseases.
Wow.
Not just infectious diseases, but also chronic conditions and even cancer.
Speaking of cancer, our source material mentions the possibility of therapeutic cancer vaccines.
Right.
What exactly are those?
Therapeutic cancer vaccines are designed to stimulate the immune system to attack and destroy cancer cells.
Okay.
Unlike traditional vaccines that prevent diseases, these vaccines are used to treat existing cancers.
So it's like training your body's own defense system to fight off the cancer cells.
Exactly.
Like a personal army of immune cells.
It's a very promising area of research, and we're seeing encouraging results in clinical trials.
That's incredible. It feels like we're entering a new era of medicine where the immune system is taking center stage.
We are, and the potential is enormous. Imagine a world where we can harness the power of the immune system to not only prevent diseases, but also to treat them.
It's like we're unlocking a whole new toolbox for health and healing.
Exactly. And this is just the beginning. Who knows what other amazing breakthroughs are just around the corner?
It's exciting to think about all the possibilities.
Yeah.
But before we get carried away with futuristic visions, let's bring it back to the present.
Okay.
What are some of the challenges we face in the field of vaccines today?
So one of the biggest challenges is vaccine hesitancy.
Right.
Fueled by misinformation and mistrust. We've already discussed the importance of addressing those concerns and promoting vaccine literacy.
Right. It's like we need to build a firewall of accurate information to counter the virus of misinformation.
Exactly. And that requires a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
Educating the public, building trust in healthcare institutions, and promoting responsible media coverage.
It's like a public health campaign.
It is.
But instead of promoting a specific vaccine, we're promoting the very idea of vaccination and the science behind it.
Exactly. We need to emphasize the shared benefits of vaccination, how it protects individuals and contributes to the health of our communities.
It's like that old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Right.
When it comes to public health, we're all in this together.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to address issues of equity and access to vaccines.
Right.
It's not enough to develop these life-saving interventions.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that they reach everyone who needs them regardless of their location, socioeconomic status, or other factors.
So it's not just about the science, it's about the social determinants of health, ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to benefit from these advancements.
Exactly. It's about creating a world where health and well-being are not a privilege, but a right.
That's a powerful vision.
Oh, yeah.
And it highlights the interconnectedness of science, ethics, and social justice in the realm of public health.
It does, and it's a vision worth striving for.
Okay. I think we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive.
We have.
But I can tell there's still more to discuss. Maybe we need to pick this up in part 3.
I agree. We still haven't talked about the specifics of how mRNA vaccines work,
Right.
or the potential risks and benefits of this new technology.
You're right. That's a crucial part of this conversation that we shouldn't rush through.
Exactly. It deserves a deep dive of its own. So let's take a break here and come back for part 3, where we'll delve into the fascinating world of mRNA vaccines and explore the future of this rapidly evolving field.
Okay, we're back.
We are.
We've covered so much ground already.
I know, right?
From like the history of vaccines to the ethical considerations.
Yeah.
Even touching on the future with personalized vaccines.
It's a lot.
But we left off on a bit of a cliffhanger.
We did. We were about to delve into the world of mRNA vaccines,
Yeah.
which is a whole different approach to immunization compared to the traditional methods we discussed earlier.
Exactly. It's like this revolutionary technology that seemed to appear out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of research and history behind it.
There is. Absolutely. Remember how we talked about the 2003 SARS outbreak?
Yeah.
Well, the initial push for mRNA vaccine research actually came from scientists grappling with that virus.
Right. They were looking for a faster, more adaptable way to develop vaccines against emerging threats.
Exactly.
Like they knew something like COVID-19 could be lurking around the corner.
It's almost prophetic, isn't it?
It is.
They realized traditional methods were too slow, so they started exploring this idea of using mRNA, messenger RNA,
Right.
to trigger an immune response.
Okay, back up for a second. Remind me what mRNA is again?
Okay.
It's been a while since high school biology class.
So think of DNA as the master blueprint for your cells,
Okay.
containing all the genetic instructions.
Uh-huh.
mRNA is like a temporary copy of a specific instruction from that blueprint,
Okay.
telling your cells what proteins to make.
So it's like a recipe card that gets passed along from the cookbook to the chef.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Now, here's the brilliant part about mRNA vaccines.
Okay.
Instead of injecting a weakened or inactive virus, they deliver a snippet of mRNA that codes for a specific viral protein.
So it's like giving our cells the instructions to build a piece of the enemy's uniform so our immune system can learn to recognize it.
Exactly. Once your cells produce that viral protein, your immune system goes, hey, this doesn't belong here,
Yeah.
and mounts a defense, creating antibodies and memory cells that can fight the actual virus if you ever encounter it.
That's so clever. But it also sounds a bit risky,
Yeah.
like messing with our cells' instructions.
Right.
No wonder some people are concerned about the long-term effects of mRNA vaccines.
It's understandable to have questions, especially with a new technology.
Yeah.
But the beauty of mRNA is that it's temporary.
Okay.
It delivers the instructions and then breaks down quickly without altering your DNA.
But doesn't the central dogma of molecular biology say that DNA makes RNA, which makes protein?
Right.
How does that work if the mRNA is just a temporary visitor?
Great question. It's like trying to build a house from a blueprint. You need the actual materials, not just the instructions.
Yeah.
The mRNA provides the blueprint for a specific viral protein,
Okay.
but your cells still use their own materials and machinery to build it.
Okay.
The mRNA itself doesn't become part of your DNA.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
It's like borrowing a recipe book but not writing in it or
Yeah.
changing the original recipes.
Right.
But what about long-term effects?
So
It's still a relatively new technology, right?
it is, but research so far suggests that mRNA vaccines are as safe as traditional vaccines.
Okay.
Any medical intervention comes with potential risks,
Right.
but the benefits of vaccines far outweigh those risks, especially when you consider the dangers of the diseases they prevent.
That's reassuring. But one thing that really caught my attention in our source material was this idea that the information about mRNA vaccines is open source.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
It's a fascinating aspect.
Yeah.
Traditionally, vaccine development has been a very closed process, with companies holding tightly onto their proprietary information.
Right.
But with mRNA vaccines, some of the key information, like the genetic sequence of the viral protein, is publicly available.
So it's like sharing the recipe with the world instead of keeping it a secret.
Exactly. And this open source approach has the potential to be incredibly transformative.
Okay.
Imagine a world where scientists from all over the globe can collaborate, share data, and build upon each other's work to develop even better vaccines faster.
That sounds like a dream come true for global health.
Yeah.
But are there any potential downsides to this open source model?
There are always challenges with any new approach.
Of course.
One concern is the potential for misinformation or manipulation of this open source data.
Oh, right.
We've already seen how easily misinformation can spread, especially online.
Yeah.
It's crucial to have systems in place to ensure accuracy and prevent the spread of harmful falsehoods.
So it's like a double-edged sword. It has the potential to accelerate progress.
Yeah.
But it also requires responsible stewardship and vigilance against bad actors.
That's exactly right. We need to approach this with both optimism and caution.
Yeah.
Harnessing the power of open source collaboration while also safeguarding against its potential pitfalls.
Well, I think we've done a pretty thorough deep dive into the world of vaccines.
I think so.
We've covered so much ground from like the basics of immunity to the complexities of mRNA technology.
Absolutely.
And it's clear that this conversation is far from over.
It isn't.
Vaccine science is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
With new discoveries and challenges emerging all the time.
It's true.
It's an ongoing journey of discovery, and we need to stay informed and engaged.
Right.
Asking questions, seeking evidence, and having those sometimes difficult but crucial conversations.
Absolutely. And hopefully this deep dive has equipped our listeners to do just that, to navigate this complex landscape with knowledge-critical thinking and a sense of wonder about the incredible power of science and the human immune system.
Well said. I think that's a perfect place to wrap up our exploration of vaccines. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure. Until next time, stay curious and stay healthy.